And here we are. Once you get your drawing done, you are going to create patterns with crayons. And just some simple patterns in the spaces. And we're going to be doing a resist with watercolor, so you do have to make the crayon go on pretty dark and push pretty hard. So I will just create a few patterns with the crayons, go over it, thicken up some of the lines here and there, and then we will pull the watercolors out and finish. On some of the smaller areas that will be hard to watercolor, like the ears, eyes, lips, I'm actually just going to color those all in with a crayon. And I could do different colors if I want, but like this would be kind of hard to do with watercolor without it getting kind of all mucked up. So I'll take all the little teeny areas and just color those with a crayon. You'll notice that I did not do any coloring in the face and the skin area. And here we go with some watercolor. You need clean water, you need a sponge for dabbing off your brush, and here's some watercolors. Mine are a little different than yours. But you'll notice that I am getting the watercolor ready to use by putting a little drop of water in each of my little watercolor pads. And here we go. So it's called watercolor because you need to use water to get the color to work for you. And on this first little piece, I'm just going to put a little water into an area first just to kind of get it ready so I don't have a big bloppy area when I put the paint on it. So I'm going to just put a little bit of water in one of the areas. I especially like to do this when I'm starting with a real dark color, just so it doesn't get too dark on the paper to start with. You can always add more pigment. So you can see I took a dark purple and I just added into a watery area, and then my crayon shows up. If you do too much pigment and not enough water, your crayon won't show up. So that's why I did that. You can always make it darker if you like. To rinse your brush, make sure you use water to get the pigment off and then dab it dry on the sponge. Please remember to do that when you're changing colors. Ah! I'll show you how to fix a mistake. Look at those drips I had. I'll take some clean water and just loosen the paint up a little bit and then dab it with a very clean rag and the watercolor drip goes away. But you do have to use clean water to kind of go over the drip to loosen it up from the paper and then dab it clean. Nifty, huh? So now that I've fixed that and I have one area painted, what you should do is, if you have a wet area, move to another area that's far away from it so the watercolors won't blend together. So I'm not painting the area right next to the area I just painted. I'm moving to a whole new area so that the colors don't run together. It also helps if you have fairly thick black lines and you kind of keep the watercolor away from those lines a little bit. But I'll paint this area and then I'll move to another one that's kind of far away, and I'll just keep painting until I have my whole piece of paper covered with watercolor. Again, remember to rinse your brush by tapping it on the bottom and then using the sponge to take the excess water off. And that sponge should be fairly clean when you get finished. You shouldn't have a lot of watercolor on it. You should be rinsing it before you dab it on the sponge. Here we go with color number 3. right here. And here it is all painted. There's something I didn't like about this. I did not like all the different colors all over the place. So I decided that I would make the background kind of more in the warm reds and oranges. And because it's dry, I can go over some of my watercolors with more of an orange color on the outsides, on the background, I guess. If your color's not dry, then sometimes it's hard to do that without getting a mucky mess. But if I let it dry a little bit, I can just go over some of my colors. I want to make the background more reddish, and I'm going to make the head a little bit more with the blues, and we'll see what it looks like when I'm done. And here's the finished painting. I did more of the warm oranges in the background, going over some dried watercolor, and I did more blues on the face. There's one thing I do want you to notice, to be careful of. I had an orange neck before, and I put some blue over the orange. Now, blue and orange are opposite colors, so together they make brown. So I did this on purpose just to show you, you do have to be careful if you're going over dry watercolor. You have to make sure that the colors will not make a color you don't want. So if you put opposite colors together, you're going to get brown. So just be careful if you have colors that you are going to be going over with the watercolor. But I like the final result.